Hello again. Today's footage is further progress on the spare room trailer. I'm starting to work on getting the floor framing stabilized. The GoPro was acting up a little bit and didn't want to charge, so I didn't get any footage of the initial leveling process, but as you can see, it is leveled out, and there are some cedar posts attached to the concrete pier blocks. Those are what I'm using to help ensure that everything is stabilized. There's one in each corner, and then there's also one in the there's two in the middle at the 8-foot mark for either side. And so what I'm doing at the moment is just getting some gravel and spreading that out so that the concrete pier blocks will have something to help distribute their weight a little wider, a little bit more solid. And then I'll measure and cut the concrete posts, or excuse me, the cedar posts, and attach that to both the rim joists and the concrete pier block. The thought about where to put this trailer was based mostly on its function, and regretfully the ability to access it for the construction purposes was a little bit more of an afterthought, so it's been somewhat challenging. In fact, these boards down in front that I'm using, they were put there so that we could use the tractor to actually drop enough gravel there to bring the front end of the trailer up and have a good solid surface there. I'm gonna have to do this again. I want to actually eventually get more gravel, and we'll spread it around the base so that there's not mud around it. Not that we actually have to do too much walking around the outside of it, but that'll just help keep things a little bit cleaner. Keep the mice away a little bit easier. Keep the weeds a little, or the grasses away a little bit easier. Stuff like that. So in addition to the posts that I'm actually adding, there's also some braces directly under the trailer frame itself that are wedged under there just to ensure there's as much support as possible. One of the things that kind of gets old after a while is the wiggliness of the camper that we have. So I wanted to make sure we prevent that, so that when you're actually walking around inside of this, you don't feel like you're sitting on jack stands. And I also pulled the tires off. As I mentioned in yesterday's video, the tires were on the west side, the far side of that, opposite where I'm working now, were basically touching the joist, so that needed to be addressed. So easiest way to pull the axles off was to start with the tires, although I guess in retrospect, if I'd have left the tires on and could have used them and just kind of wheeled it, like rolled it out, but that's okay. It is what it is. So I did make a slight mistake here. I pointed out that there's actually a double joist here because this is the seam between the 8-foot and 16-foot rim joists. And I cut the posts for the actual the side posts apparently slightly smaller, so when I put the second of those two joists in place, I took one of the posts and measured it and positioned it correctly, but the cedar posts apparently were cut slightly larger, so I had to cut a notch in it so that it actually sits under there. That's what I'm working on at the moment. And I'll get that guy secured in there. And so this will actually be the first trailer that I have built. As you can see, there's a shed there, obviously, and that's the second shed that I've built on the property. And I'm not new per se to framing or to building. I am somewhat new to timber framing, or post and beam technically is what I'm doing, because I don't have mortise and tenon joinery. I'm just using the beams and then construction structural screws, and then we'll be adding steel plates to each of the main joints down the road. That was one of the things that we have discussed. We have the option to buy those from someone else and have somebody fabricate them for us. And for instance, we have some actual barn plans that we joined the Barn Geek library so that we would have access to those plans, and that turned out to be a pretty good benefit, because then I got to see a lot of finished drawings. One of the challenges we run into is that they are drawn by an engineer in Michigan, I think is where he's located, and Washington requires that they be approved by a Washington licensed engineer, so we have to take them and submit them. Well, not all of them. Some of them. There are certain things, like if it's a sidewall height of over 12 feet, for instance, or I don't remember off the top of my head what some of the other requirements were. So we have one. It's just a regular gambrel, and the county approved that one without any modifications. The only thing I had to do for that one was specify the height of the joist, which I thought was a little bit silly. On one of the drawing pages it shows the bent and it shows the height of the top of the floor, so grade, up to the top of the floor crossbeam. But it doesn't actually list the height of the post. So I had to point out that the post size is listed on the cut list, and they did approve that, but I just thought that was a little, I don't know, sometimes I guess a pole barn type structure, post and beam type structure, is just enough outside the norm that you have to do a little bit of extra work on it, but that's okay. It is what it is. So anyway, we joined that, and that was a good way to get a really good idea of how things kind of, need to be built, sizes of posts, sizes of joists and rafters and things like that. And I'm of the opinion that everything should be not built to the minimum. So that's why, even though I'm using 4x4s for these posts, they're all large. I mean, they're oversized 4x4s. They're slightly stronger. I technically lose like 1.5 inches of usable floor space once we get all the interior siding up or paneling. I guess technically it's paneling on the inside and siding on the outside, but once we get all that up, I'm not too worried about that. So we're just continuing on, though. I'm a little scatterbrained today, apparently. I apologize for that. I feel like I'm more rambly than I normally am, and that's just a little strange. Very distracted for some reason. I guess it's the holiday. We'll blame that. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so we'll blame that. That's where my mind's at. So here, this is where I came to the decision that I would actually completely remove the axles instead of because I after I took the tire off, I was looking at it and realized that the one tire was completely skewed. It was off kilter. So to fix that, I have to replace that particular axle. That's the rear axle. So I decided, you know what, let's just get this done now, because it's going to be difficult enough welding under there to put an axle back up. I don't want to have to sit down there with the grinder in addition to welding, so I figured I'd hurry and do this while everything is still open. And there's the one axle slid out. And that's the first time I've ever played with an axle, to be honest. They're heavy. I mean, each axle is rated. That's what I'm doing right now, is trying to figure out what the actual weight rating of the axle is. And I was quite pleasantly surprised that this particular trailer actually had 3,500 pound axles. So that was a pretty good benefit. Since we're going to upgrade these axles can actually be used for something different. Since the one is bent, I'm going to cut it in half, and we'll make something out of that. And the other one might become a little trailer of some kind, maybe a portable smoke trailer or something. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for watching. God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.